Good afternoon. The Electrostar family of trains is the most common in the United Kingdom, and in Train Simulator World 2, it is represented by the classes 375 in Southeastern High Speed, 377-4 in East Coastway in London Commuter, and 387 in London Commuter. Today we will examine the characteristics of each of these trains, their functionality, and how to operate and drive them. What is immediately obvious about these trains is that they have a front-end gangway. This is used when coupling up with other units to allow the crew and passengers to walk between the trains seamlessly. On the gangway, you can clearly see the doors that open in order to connect the trains. Directly beneath, the Delna 12 coupler is visible. This is used to provide the physical and electrical connections between the two trains when they are coupled together. Also in the well are the two horns. These are used to provide two different tones. Directly to the side of the well lie these two wheel casings. To the left, we can also see this track light. This is used to illuminate and record the track for any defects. Above, what is also noticeable are the two headlight clusters. They are currently displaying red for the end of the train. We'll look at these in more detail later. Just visible above the gangway is the front end marker light. This is located at the top of the train to provide extra guidance on the train's profile. Let us now examine the side profile of these units. As can be seen here, they have a 1/3 2/3 door configuration, and the doors themselves are biparting sliding plug. Towards the cab, you notice the driver's door. This can be opened by the player by left-clicking. However, in real life, it is opened by lifting this release lever to the left of the door. When the doors are unlocked by the driver or conductor, passengers can open the doors by pressing the button on them. In-game, the player can open them any time without them being unlocked, unless the train is moving. Upon boarding, passengers will note that the train is laid out in a 2+2 configuration. However, this is not consistent across all the Electrostars represented in Train Sim World 2. The Class 377-4 bears this comfortable 2+2 seating arrangement in the driving coaches. However, in the centre coaches, you'll notice it's 2+3. At intervals along the train, these PIS displays can be noted. These display route information of the train. At the moment, it's displaying not in service. Unlike the other two Electrostars and TSW, the Class 387 is 2+2 throughout, featuring the unpopular ironing board style seats. Priority seats on both Southern and Gatwick Express trains are indicated by these upside down triangles. First class on the Class 387 is also indistinguishable from standard, with the exception of the headrests. Seating on the Class 375s is similar to that of the 377. However, First class does not have full width tables, and is not separated from standard, which is 2+3 throughout. Let us now enter the cab. For the purposes of this video, I'll be using a Class 387-2. However, the driving and setting up procedures in both the Class 377 and 375 are broadly the same. The first thing you'll wish to do is set up the cab into a proper driving position. You may find that it has been left in a gangway position. As seen here, it allows passengers to walk through without entering the cab. However, this is not convenient for driving. Open all the doors that may inhibit your view across the cab. Now, shut the door that connects to the passenger cabin. The cab should now be ready to drive. Let us now inspect the individual buttons and levers of the cab, starting from behind the driver's seat. This panel is operational in-game, so we'll move on to the DSD holdover button. This is used to temporarily override the feature that requires you to alert the DSD system, that is, driver safety device, that you are still attentive. It's valuable in shunting and low-speed situations. Moving down, the master key can be found. Engaging this gives the cab operation of the train. Forward of the master key, the reverser can be found. A combined power and brake controller is located to the right of the reverser. It has 4 steps of power and 4 steps of brake. However, the 4th step of brake is limited for emergency operations and creates a traction lock. Moving up to the top panel, the headlight displays can be found. These control the headlight requirements. Then we can find the auxiliary on and auxiliary off buttons. This controls the battery supply of the train when it's not connected to the third rail or overhead wires. Now we have the AC-DC system selects. This controls whether the train is receiving power from the overhead wires, AC at 25 kV, or the third rail, DC at 750 volts. The pan up and pan down features refer to the pantograph on top of the train, and the shoes down, shoes up refer to the shoe that is used to collect power from the third rail. To the right of this we can find the air conditioning temperature control, and also where you can select where heat is coming from. Below this panel, the train screen can be found. You will see a diagram of the train indicating which doors are open and which doors are closed, as well as whether there's a fault or it's out of use. You can also control the PAS from here. The MCB and line buttons are not operational in-game, but the couple button is, and the hill start function, which holds the brakes. Located to the top, you can also see the AWS sunflower display. Now moving on to the center panel, the DRA switch can be found, and then the speedometer and brake pressure indicators. Below are some train protection and warning system related buttons, however these are not functional in-game. Sand can be applied to the left, and below you can acknowledge train faults. This light will illuminate, the red one, if the safety systems are isolated, and the large yellow button is the AWS reset. Above this you can notice the door right controls, including the close button beneath, and the hazard light switch, as well as the wiper controls. Above this is the two-tone horn, and then the uncouple button. Now on the door to the right of the driver's seat, an emergency stop button can be found, as can a monitor changeover switch. This controls the 2 monitors that display CCTV footage of the side of the train, which is helpful during driver-only operation. However, in-game, this is not functional. Below the monitors, we can also find the GSM ARM device. Again, this is not operational in the game. And below this, we can find the telephone to communicate with the signaller. This does work. Now, getting up and moving to the right-hand side of the cab, we can find a train protection and warning system temporary isolation switch. This does exactly what it says on the tin. Another emergency stop button can be found above this, and then on this panel, several isolation switches for systems such as DSD, Vigilance and AWS. This panel by the right-hand side door contains guards controls, for when a guard is positioned in this cab at the rear of the train. We can see a signal bell and the guard control enabler switch, however this is not functional in the game. And below the door open controls, and then finally the door close and interlock button. This concludes the introduction to the cab of the Electrostar. If you'll excuse the unprofessional nature of the HUD, let us now go through the takeover operation that you will be required to be familiar with when taking over services at stations. Please bear in mind this is not a cold start. If you wish to know how to operate one of those, you can follow the tutorial in-game. However, no service mode scenarios will require you to use the cold start feature. Once again, we'll be using a class 387. The first thing you'll wish to do is engage the master key. This will give you control over the cab. Now, you'll want to set the reverser to neutral. This will give power to certain systems. You'll now wish to set the headlights. In this case we'll use day running. However, between the hours of 8 PM and 8 AM, it is advised to use night running headlights to improve visibility. However, as always, use discretion as to whether you think they should be applied. You can now set the air conditioning temperature to your desired. We'll now wish to set the PIS display so passengers can see where we are travelling. Press the bottom right PIS button. You can now choose where you're travelling. In this case, we're running to London Victoria, which is already selected, so there'll be nothing left to do. As we will need to be loading passengers, we can now open the doors. In real life, each button controls something different about whether the doors will be unlocked or opened all the way. However, in game, the process is simplified, and pressing any button will open all doors. As you can see, opening doors creates a traction lock, preventing you from applying power. As our signal ahead is green, there is no need to set the DRA. However, if it was red, we would. This is done by merely clicking. Likewise, the DRA also applies a traction lock. Whilst we are loading, let's now turn on the various safety systems throughout the train. Get up and head over to the right panel. Set the DSD to normal, the vigilance to normal, and AWS also to normal. You'll hear a humming noise. Reset it using the AWS Acknowledge button. You'll now hear an audible confirmation that the systems are active. Your train is now ready to go. Close the doors. Once they are closed, the blue interlock light should alight. This indicates that the doors are all fully closed and it is safe to depart. You can now set the reverser to forward. Now, move the power controller to notch 1. Once you are moving, you can then increase the power to the notch desired. It is important to be gentle with power application and provide a smooth ride for the passengers. When approaching your desired speed, reduce your power to off. This will allow the train to coast and reduces motor stress. When passing speed boards, as we have just done, ensure that the entirety of your train is beyond the board before accelerating to the desired speed. Once it has, you can now accelerate. When approaching a station, it may be your preference to sound the horn with a low then high tone to alert passengers standing on the platform that you were coming through at high speed. It is not customary to sound the horn at passing trains. Let us now examine how to depart in adverse conditions that might cause wheel slip. As usual, we'll need to shut the doors. Now, release the brakes and apply 1 notch of power. Maintain this level of power until you've reached 5 miles an hour. Once you have surpassed this, you can then exceed up to notch 2, and so on. If however wheel slip does occur, it will be marked by this yellow traction sound light. Simply press it for 5 seconds. The problem should resolve itself. If not, however, either lower power or continue holding the traction sound button for another 5 seconds. Let us now go over the process of stopping. As you can see, we are 1.5 miles from Haywards Heath in a Class 377-4 and are currently travelling at approximately 85 miles an hour. The aim is to reach 25 miles an hour by the end of the platform, so let's apply step 1 of braking power approximately 1.2 miles from the station. Below 75 miles an hour, I'd advise you start applying this a level of braking power at around 1 mile from the station. Furthermore, we're on a slight incline, meaning that we'll stop faster than if we're on a descent. You want to ensure you do not feather the throttle, as in change the step of braking power rapidly. However, if you do need to apply more braking power, do not be afraid to do so. It's better to provide an uncomfortable ride than lose the station. As we approach, it seems best that we apply another step of braking power, to avoid overspeeding. However, as we arrive again, we can now see that we will make it at 25 miles an hour without requiring step 2. We may now release the brake, as we do not want to stop too early. As this train is 8 coaches long, we want to look for the 8 coach stop marker. We can see here 3 to 9 is indicated. This is where we'll wish to stop. And I have just overrun. As you arrive at your lowest speed, you'll want to release your braking power to step 1. This prevents the train wheels jerking up. Unfortunately, that was not the best example of stopping, as I have overshot. But that was a reasonably smooth stop, I hope you can agree. Well, that got progressively more unprofessional right up to the end, didn't it? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed and I hope you learned something. That was actually quite a fun video to make. I was expecting it to be rather tedious. Now, would you like me to make more Trains and World videos, or maybe another in-depth guide to certain trains? I have to say though, this wasn't quite as good as I was expecting it to be. Turns out I'm actually worse at the game than I once thought. Hence the bad stop at Hayward's Heath. Believe it or not, I'd actually made 4 attempts before that, and they were all significantly worse, so in the end, when I actually managed to stop on the platform, I thought, I might as well go for that. And one last thing before you go. If you've stayed around this long, you're probably pretty interested in transportation. If you are, you might want to consider joining the Abbott First Discord server. There's a link in the description. It's a very nice place for that sort of thing. It's a lovely community.